Turn off your lights. Make sure your doors and windows are locked. Things are about to get spooky. It's a Steal by Remoraman. The old Victorian was my grandmother's. It had become decrepit over the years, a real fixer-upper. But I and my wife were both optimistic. The house was equipped with all the modern amenities, and she wanted a place big enough to host a family. So we moved in right after our honeymoon, in those salad days of our youth. The summer days, bright sunlight and love. When she danced across the foyer, spinning, her beautiful legs moved intricately as her heels thumped against the floorboards. And we thought it would be our dream home, the castle to our fantasy kingdom. But in dreams, you don't scream at each other until you lose your voice. You don't find reasons to fight just so you have an excuse to vent the hatred that has been building up in your heart. In dreams, you don't feel the hot heat of anger making your cheeks flush and your tongue waggle before you even know what it's waggling about. But the one you love, don't belittle you night after night. Don't lie about where they've been. Don't mock when the lies are discovered. It is not in dreams, but nightmares that a kitchen knife becomes your best friend. But not even in my darkest of nightmares could I imagine anyone screaming like that as the terrible red mist consumed everything. No book that I had ever read, even the most grisly tale of murder, adequately described the coppery smell as her face went pale and she fell limply, like a doll with its strings cut. She was dead when I put her in the walls, dead when I bricked her, still bleeding, into a crevice in the cellar. I slept well that night. The bottle helped, because I knew she was. When I talked to the police, I told them she was missing, but I knew she was. And a year passed with nothing, and she was legally declared. And we had a funeral. And I wept sincere tears and held her mother and my mother, and we all knew. She was dead, 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 dead. So why do the walls still pulsate with her heartbeat? Why do the spigots spout red when I turn them on? Why does every draft carry my name spoken in her voice? Every night, the floorboards creak from her bare feet as she dances. Still dances. Across the wood, laughing at me once again. Does anyone want to buy a house? An old Victorian with all the modern amenities. It's a fixer-upper, sure. But I swear, it's a steal. Everyone has an unchanging percentage showing how morally good they are and will be throughout their life. After devoting my life to helping others, with my kidnapper and abuser having been at 11%, I wonder what in God's name I have done or will do to receive a 0. I keep bumping into the same stranger, and I don't think it's a coincidence. By Salmon 1935. People say the world is a small place. Out of the many people on this planet, sometimes it feels like we keep bumping into the same ones. It happened to me sometimes. You meet a guy in middle school, and after a couple of years, you just happen to find yourself sitting at the same diner. But this time, it's different. One day, I was walking in a park near my neighborhood. I decided to sit on a bench. It's something of a morning routine. I just sat down and experienced the silence. I usually go there in the morning before work, where nobody's around and there's just me and my thoughts. But that morning, I wasn't alone. As I stood up from the bench, I realized someone was at my side. Naturally, as I didn't even hear him approach me, I was shocked by his presence and jumped back, squealing. As I regained my composure, I took a good look at him. He was a lengthy, pale, wrinkly old man, probably in his early 70s. He wore a black raincoat and a black fedora. His eyes were covered by these small, round sunglasses, and his hands, covered by a pair of black leather gloves, held tightly onto a metal suitcase resting on his knees. He looked straight ahead, bearing a disgust frown on his aged face. I wanted to apologize to him, but something about that man sent shivers down my spine. He looked way too out of place. It was almost uncanny. It felt like he was devoid of all color, as if he came out of an old black and white movie. His proportions were slightly off-putting. I'm not sure how to properly explain it, but it was as if his skin was stretched upwards. After the immediate scare, I just ran as fast as I could, and later that day, I tried to brush it off as just some weirdo creeping people out. But the day after, things started to get weird. The day after, I went to the bar with some friends after work, and sitting at a couple of tables away from me was the stranger. Naturally, I felt a bit threatened and hid among my friends, but he didn't seem to have noticed me. He just silently drank his coffee while reading a newspaper. I explained the situation to my friends, and they assured me that it was just a coincidence. So, once again, I ignored this strange situation, but now I don't think I can ignore it any longer. I started to see him at least once a day, wherever I go. At the hospital, at the office, at the airport. It didn't matter where I am. Somehow we'd always find each other. Every time he acts indifferent, as if he doesn't even know that I'm there. I try talking to him, but he simply ignores me, always parading that static, disgusted frown looking towards nothing, as if he despises the world itself. I don't know what to do. I want to report the whole thing to the police, but I don't think it'll go anywhere. The guy barely acknowledges me. It's almost as if I'm the one stalking him. If anyone has any idea how to get rid of this thing, or if you have a similar experience, please share them with me. I'm out of options at this point. I can't turn a corner without thinking he might be there waiting for me. I only feel safe on my own when I'm at home, but is that going to last? The air you breathe is brought to you by Apple. 30 seconds is all it takes to remind you that innovation isn't just what we do, it's the very air you breathe. As the ad continues, I think to myself I should have taken a bigger breath, not sure if it will last the full 30 seconds. Reminder of the pool rules by a local lifeguard. By exactly 5 raccoons. Summer is finally here and our swimming facilities have opened for the season. Since it's been in the gig for a while, I figured it'd be a good idea to post a reminder for everyone. I've been a lifeguard for 5 years now, and I've had my fair share of accidents, stupid kids, even worse parents, and chlorine practically running through my veins. My first reminder is always to stay safe, and of course, my second is to have fun. Let's get started. Indoor pool. First thing, for any body of water, if you have little ones or anyone who's not a strong swimmer, always remember to put them in a life jacket. U.S. Coast Guard certified, or whatever your country's certification is always what we use at my pool, and we always recommend them if you have non-swimmers in your family. No running on the pool deck. This one is a given. The tile is slick and you can fall, causing breaks, sprains, concussions, things like that. And we all know, lifeguards can't control if you get followed. The back bathroom in the family locker room is always locked. Anytime it's unlocked, do not use it. It's not meant for you. Always keep your eyes on your children. It feels like I shouldn't have to remind parents/guardians of this, yet every year we have a couple code Nemo called over the walkies. As protocol, we clear the pool and keep everyone on deck to make sure we get a head count. And hopefully we can find your child inside the building. What happens if we don't? We call EMS or the police station to make sure they didn't wander out of the building. While the pools are cleared, we also search to make sure they're not at the bottom. Common sense rules are some of the most broken, unfortunately. Like no horseplay, no drinking/spitting the water, and being generally courteous of the fellow swimmers. We don't want you or someone else getting injured because you decide to frisbee a kickboard to your friend. Yes, this often happens. Also, the pool has chemicals in it, and drinking it can make you sick. Don't stick your face too close to the surface of the water. You'll be grabbed and taken, and we cannot prevent it. If it starts to storm at all, we have to clear the pool. Our generator is outside, and it can be struck by lightning. So don't get your trunks in a twist when we tell you to wait 30 minutes. Please and thank you. If there's any bodily fluid in the water, except blood, we have to clear the pool. I promise you will be able to get back in. Just be patient. Don't acknowledge the girl in the hallway leading to the locker rooms. We know she's there. We know she keeps asking for help. Pretend like she doesn't exist, and she will not cause you any harm. It's sad I also have to say this, but please don't go near our chemical/pump room. We handle very toxic and dangerous chemicals that most people don't have any training in using. If a man approaches you asking to help him with the chemicals, do not engage. You will not come back. Lap lanes are first come, first served. No, we cannot reserve a lane for you. Tacking this on as well. Yes, the water is always this cold. No, we can't change it if we want to. Please keep only 2 people per lane. Don't get greedy. Sauna and steam room are for 16 plus only. They get too hot for little ones. If you're in the steam room, the faces in the steam won't hurt you. If you're in the sauna, the old woman in the green towel is just sleeping. Don't wake her up. As for pool equipment, like fins and kickboards, use them in the way they were meant to be used. Like I said before, no frisbeeing anything across the pool, no walking in fins, etc. You will fall and break something, and no one wants a trip to the hospital. Do not stay underneath the mushroom water feature for more than a couple minutes. You will come back out and it will not be the place you were before. Hanging on the rim of our basketball hoop is a terrible idea because it's only weighed down by sand. If you dunk and hang on, it will fall on you. I've seen it happen before. When the pool closes, it's a lifeguard's job to make sure everyone is gone before locking the doors. If you try to stay after we turn off the lights, you're on your own. Of course, there are always accidents, so if you're forgotten/left behind, follow these rules. Find a secluded, dry area to stay until morning guard finds you. They'll be here at 4:30 a.m. Try to keep yourself as warm and dry as possible. If you hear them start singing, under no circumstance should you go to them. They will drown you faster than you realize, and then we have a mess to clean up in the morning. If you hear someone walking around outside, check the time. No one will be coming to save you until 4:30 a.m. Don't listen to what they say, don't trust them, and don't move from your spot. We try to feed them as often as possible, so most nights they don't cause problems in the case someone got locked inside. But don't assume you'll get away. Always stay alert and active just in case. Since I've been a lifeguard for a while, I've also had/heard my fair share of emergency situations. There are almost always caused by people not following the rules, which shows how important they are. I responded to a 16-year-old boy who decided to run on the pool deck and not watch where he was going. He slipped and hit his head on the ground and had a major head wound. He was concussed and bleeding heavily. We performed first aid and called EMS, and he made a full recovery. An 8-year-old girl jumped up and grabbed the rim of the basketball hoop, tipped it over, and crushed her underneath. The rim caught her by the neck, effectively crushing her windpipe. We performed first aid to the best of our abilities, and EMS was able to take over. Her status is unknown. A young mother came up to me about her missing child. We performed a code Nemo, searched the entire facility, but we were unable to find them. The mother stated that she turned around for a split second, and the last time she saw her child was when they were playing under the mushroom in the family fun pool. There was an elderly man that got forgotten by a family member and locked on the pool deck overnight. He was found in pieces, floating in the instructional pool. Do not approach the singing. A 12-year-old girl wandered into the sauna when her parents weren't looking. Accidentally, she woke up the woman wearing the green towel. Hours later, and after an unsuccessful code Nemo, the two closing guards found her sitting in the sauna with most of her facial features torn off. She had no nose, eyes, ears, or mouth, and her throat was slit. Well, I think that about covers it. If you have any questions or concerns about water safety, feel free to ask. I have plenty more information at my disposal. Always remember, stay safe, stay alert, and never go swimming alone. Enjoy your swim. Data from your eye-brain implant reveals that on October the 26th at 13:52, for approximately 10 seconds, you thought about murdering your neighbor. the judge announced. Unfortunately, this is 5 seconds too long to be considered a fleeting thought, and you are hereby sentenced to 20 years confinement for premeditated attempted murder. The End of Us by mrcenterofdauniverse. The skin, clean, raw, aching, tears. Flesh pulls apart, wet sounds. No scream comes, can't scream, can't stop it. Hands, no teeth, they gnaw, tear, bite, piece by piece, slow, faster, slower. Bones exposed, cracks, sounds like the feeling, like paper ripping, but deeper, wetter. Eyes squeezed shut. It'll stop soon. It must. It won't. Those teeth, grinding, gnashing, biting, inside now deeper, deeper than the skin, than the bones, into the marrow, no, the core. Down to what lives inside the meat, the voice, the quiet voice that said, I did this, I know it, this is my fault, my fault, my fault. Her footsteps now muffled, fading. The teeth take more, never enough. Something pulls, something, him, dragging into himself, no escape. Each bite takes what was hidden, what was buried. It smells like rot, not him, but something else, something that died long before the teeth came. And therefore the hands reach out, the teeth biting, gnawing at the thoughts, the words left unsaid. Closer, closer, until there's no air, only the thick feeling. It should have been stopped. The words came first, the sharpness of them, the way they cut so easily. A whisper over the phone. I knew this would happen. He could hear the finality in her voice. How the distance between them was no longer something that could be crossed. The words weren't just an end, they were the truth they had both ignored. He stayed on the line for a moment, letting the silence fill the space where once there had been something alive, something he thought was mutually eternal. But before that, the silence, the months of it heavy in every room, weighing down every glance, every look. It wasn't spoken, but it was there, in the way they moved around each other like prisoners, pretending not to notice the bars. The conversations that had once flowed so easily now felt forced, or worse, absent. There were days when neither spoke at all, as if waiting for the other to break the silence. Neither did. The hurt seeped in like water through cracks in the wall, unnoticed until it was too late, until it became part of them. Before even that, there was a night. He cried, her hand reached out, but neither of them knew how to fix it. The tears weren't for one thing, but for everything. All the tiny moments where they had failed each other. The unspoken disappointment that had stacked up until he could no longer hold them in. He wanted to say the right thing, to be the person she needed, but because of every action proved the opposite. How she had set herself free already. Every word he said felt wrong, too small to contain the weight of what had slipped between his fingers. He said something anyway, something he couldn't remember now. But he saw in her eye that it wasn't enough, that nothing could be. Go back further still to the beginning, when he saw her cross the room, the way her warmth, laugh, and aura were tuned to him, the way she felt like everything he had been missing. She was a companion, and he was drawn to her like he had been wandering on his own for far too long. They talked for hours, days, minutes, days, weeks, seconds, months, nights, years, and it felt sometimes like a puzzle, seeing the bigger picture, filling out piece by piece. They had fallen to something quickly, intensely, both of them hungering for connection, for a life that felt more than ordinary and simultaneously perfectly ordinary. But even then, even those first moments, there was something else, the other side of the coin. If you keep flipping it, at some point, it will show. He knew then, deep down, how it would end, how they would hurt each other in ways neither could predict. But knowing didn't stop him from turning a blind eye, believing in the value of what he had already seen, the right side of the coin, trusting the preciousness as he moved closer. Didn't stop her either. They let it begin because at the time it felt inevitable, like something they both had to live through. The teeth meant no resistance. What's left gives way, soft, easy. Bone crumbles, marrow dries. The flesh, already torn, dissolved into gnashing, no longer fighting back. Every bite a little bit more, every piece less than before. Less to take, less to feel. The hands, the skin, the breath, gone. Eyes blinked once, twice, already closed. Then nothing. The teeth dig, but there's nothing left to bite. No scream, no blood, just empty air where once there had been something alive. A body reduced to fragments, a life consumed. I knew this would happen. The voice as dust swept through a breeze. The voice faded away, the weight lifted. No more skin to split, no more bone to crack. A world is muted. No flesh, no thought, no memory. Nothing. The gnashing stops, the teeth rest. There is nothing more for them. There is nothing more for them. A face so sunlit, but poison in the kiss. A heart that feeds on ego until it dies. Let nothing mask the crime, the rot in this. The kind that hides, then feasts before the eyes. And every step is haunted by the crack, the split of lives thought whole but torn apart. Let lips once soft and sweet turn sharp and black, each breath a ghost that drags against the heart. There is no peace for those who twist the knife, no home in sheets that reek of strangers' skin. The smile, denied, will blind them in its spite, and leave them empty, choking on their sin. Let the ground split, let every bridge ignite. Their world can burn, and ours bask in light. Please, just one more try. I know I can save her. The attendant put a hand on my now wrinkled shoulder. I'm sorry, sir, but you don't have enough years left now to power the time machine again. And with that, our time together is coming to an end. As always, if you have a story you'd like me to narrate, you can send it my way 3 different ways, either through an email, my website, or my subreddit. Second of all, I'd like to thank my patrons and members for your support. As always, guys, you help keep the lights on, and I really appreciate it. Last but never least, I'd like to thank the writers who let me read their stories this evening. I thought each one had their own charm. I actually kind of felt like two of them felt kind of like poems in a way. A house that is just a steal of a deal, but might have some blood on its hands. A stranger that's out of place and seeming to follow you everywhere you go. And, well, if you ever go swimming in the near future, remember those rules and don't wake the woman in the sauna room. The last one was the hardest I found to fully get the story. I finally got it at the end, realizing it was about a breakup and the pain that can cause. At least, that's my taking. I might be slightly wrong about that. But of course, only the writer knows truly what they meant, and maybe they'll tell us in the comments if I was correct or not. But either way, I truly enjoyed reading it. And all of them. I also can't believe we're on volume 65 of horror stories. Some days it's quite shocking how many I've read, and the funny thing is when people ask me what my favorite stories that I've read are, I have a hard time because I've read so many now. I guess that's an upside of reading so many stories. I can't just pick out my favorite anymore. I have read so many and enjoyed so many. I can tell you what my favorite of a week is or a month, but not overall. Just too many. And even my taste has changed a little bit as I've gone through this. I enjoy a little more subtlety sometimes, and I love to be able to theorize afterwards what you were reading / listening to, of course. Now, if you enjoyed these stories, hit that like button and make sure it feels it. If you're new, please subscribe and turn that pretty little bell to all notifications. And of course, I would love a comment. Tell me which stories was your favorite, what kind of stories you like in the future. Really, almost anything you like to say. And if you're on the podcast, I would love if you would leave me a review. And if you're on Spotify, you now actually can do comments there. They took away the question thing and now it's just comments, but I also can do polls if I start seeing more comments there. And no matter where you're listening, if you'd like to share this with anyone who might enjoy it, it really helps my voice reach new people who might enjoy the stories I bring to life. If you'd like to help in a more financial way, I do have, of course, Patreon and memberships. As well as if you want to do a one-time donation thing, PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, and super thanks on YouTube. None of that will ever be expected, but always appreciate it, guys. As always, having people watching and listening always has and always will mean the world to me. I just like bringing these stories to life, so thank you guys so much. Sleep tight and don't let 42 bite.